Hello everybody, in today's video I'm going to be showing you my brand new custom 280, how I built it, what plans I have for it, and a little bit of the lore behind it. This video will be a little bit shorter, but what do you expect? It's not that hard of a custom. So, without further ado, let's get into it. I got this locomotive for my 2023 Christmas. It was an outstanding gift, and to find out that it was DCC and sound made it even better. The locomotive had stayed the way it was until about just yesterday, which is July 7th as of recording. The locomotive served its purpose well as a gallant little switcher. I didn't have a lot of plans to modify this, though I knew sometime later rather than sooner I was going to tune it up to my own specification. And that really came after my 461 trend. By 461 trend, I mean the LEGO 461 that I had built. It was a gallant little steamer, and yes, while I enjoyed it, due to a few life changes and some building techniques that I'm not too terribly proud of, I had to unfortunately scrap it. And while it was a very nice and detailed model, I do and don't somewhat regret scrapping it as, again, it was a nice little model. However, after the 461 trend, my love for the CB&Q's modern 280s, not those little old western ones everyone talks about or the narrow gauge CNS ones, I was hooked on the smaller size and more compactness of their consolidations. Now, right now you're probably wondering, Tristan, why have you put a Schnabel consist on the screen? Well, that's where I really got the idea to modify my 080. You see, my friend Uriah had got himself an accurate Schnabel consist that would be ran on BNSF. He had the flat car, the Schnabel itself, another flat car at the back, and a caboose. Now, when we were running it, I thought, wouldn't it be funny if I removed the little container you had, because it was able to go up and down, and if I were to put my locomotive on there, and if I were to put the tender behind the caboose and make it act like as a works train, because, you know, we were just goofing around. Unfortunately, I don't have any recordings of this. However, when we were running it around, I told him to stop, and I thought, wouldn't it be funny if I put a little truck that you would use just for a standard blue box kit underneath it to act as a pony truck? And when I did, I instantly fell in love with the idea of, hey, this would make a really nice and really small and compact and like really good looking consolidation. And I got really excited and I started thinking about it and I thought, I have an Athearn MacArthur. Now when I saw the MacArthur, my original thought was, hey, I could just put down the pony truck and call it good. I wouldn't have to change anything else. So I grabbed it from upstairs because I was in the basement and I brought it down and I put it on a shelf to compare both models side by side. And when I did that, I was like, wait a minute, the steps from the pilot actually match up with the running board of the 080. If I move this back, you can kind of see it at eye level, the steps and running board right there, somewhat match up with the running board on the 080, and then that'll allow me to use ample space to add an actual pilot to the locomotive, thus making it look more like an actual locomotive than a switcher, because it'll also have a cow catcher. I'd also like to make a note here, I'm terribly sorry if I sound raspy like Robert F. Kennedy, or if I just am breathing really heavily or such. I am just having a very bad allergic reaction right now, especially with all the pollen and all of that flying around. It's just, but yeah, I really wanted to produce this video because I love this engine, so I hope you can bear with me on that. Now that we've gotten to this point, I think I can merge the how this happened to how I built this. Because if you look at the locomotive, you'll notice a very series of differences, mainly on the pony truck. You're probably wondering, why does that not align with the Athearn model? Well, the reason is because it's from Brass 210-2. And yes, I did pull it off of the 210-2. Call me crazy, but for what it had and how well it looks, I don't think I'm going to be putting it back anytime soon, because I just enjoy this locomotive too much. Another positive of the 210-2's pony truck compared to the Athearn is, for starters, it was made out of brass, which meant I could shape it, I could cut it, I could move it however I wanted to, and it would still keep its shape relatively well compared to the plastic that Athearn used on their MacArthur. Another crazy thing is, that pony truck is actually shortened. The fact that it even had a hole there to begin with is just outstanding. Like, when I saw that, my heart instantly lit up, because I was like, wait a minute, I could actually make this work! Now was the predicament of finding how I would screw it on. That came quite easily, because do you want to know what that's from? That's the boiler mount from the steam chest to the boiler of the 282. The other parts from the 282 are quite obvious. I ended up using the smoke box because I thought it looked nicer. It wasn't that small industrial look that everyone could tell that was from an 080. It looked to be from an actual MacArthur. And because it already had a bell mounted at the front, I cut off the one behind the funnel. And with all that said, that's really the how and why the locomotive came to be what it was. I still do have a few plans to change the tender, though that's going to be a little bit harder since it's such a unique shape. But I'll figure out something eventually. I might turn it into an oil burner, but I don't know yet. Now, time for the hopefully exciting part, the lore. The locomotive was originally a part of the CB&Q's 10-engine order built by Alco with USRA standard design from 1918, and it was the last of the 10 F1 class of steam locomotives to be built and delivered to the railroad. The engine stayed with the CB&Q until it was sold to my railroad, the River Route, actual name Colorado River and Southeastern, in 1950, for the low price of $800,000, due to the wear and tear the locomotive had accumulated over the 32-year service life with the Burlington. After arriving via the rear end of a train with a caboose, the locomotive was serviced, but the owner of the company at the time, Andrew T. Britt, had ideas of using it as a smaller revenue mixed freight and light passenger locomotive. With a pilot, smoke box, pony truck, and other parts from an expensive to run and, quite frankly, rotting USRA 282, which sat in a siding for about 5 years, the 080 had become the first of a few FE-1 consolidations. The F1 remained from the CB&Q specification, but the E represented experiment, as the locomotive was in fact an experimental engine. With a few ins and outs that were not well documented, because what do you expect? The locomotive could go from an extremely rough riding top speed of 40 miles per hour to a smooth 50, allowing for a decently fast freight and commuter and passenger service. In the footage shown in the documentary video before, this locomotive had not been repainted into CRR colors, which mimicked the design of the SP cabin tender painted scheme while the boiler remained black. The locomotive would be painted fully, but tests on other steam locomotives, including that old 282, had shown that keeping the beautiful sand blue boiler clean would be a nightmare, especially for passenger trains because, as we all know, a dirty-looking engine on a nice, clean passenger train with real nicely painted coaches does not look good. Now, in this video, you can see the locomotive before it got repainted in revenue service.
What a little moonlight can do.